in the last and final installment of this 4-part series where we are breaking down the top prospects in each region. Me and my guy, Leif Thulin, we will discuss last but not least, or maybe you can say least, the Midwest region and the top 10 prospects, where we will share our top 10 prospects. Stay tuned to find out who is number 1, 2, 3, and let's see if we have a lot of similarities or if we are far off, because I feel like this region was, I wouldn't say it was the hardest, but it definitely was not loaded with NBA prospects. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Leif, it is the fourth quarter. I feel like I'm in good podcasting shape. If there's a such thing as being in podcasting shape, you definitely have to be in it, because, talking for 2 hours straight, being able to rattle off the information, you have to be in shape to do it. We had a short 20-minute intermission, but we are going on over 2 hours. Well, it's been 2 hours of recording. When we started, it was about 3 hours ago. So fourth quarter, we have to finish strong. Let's talk about the Midwest region. Out of the 4, I would say this was the region that had the fewest NBA prospects. It was difficult, but it was difficult in the sense of who fills out the bottom 8, 9, and 10. Am I off here, or is that something you agree with?
I agree with you. I think there's a clear-cut top 3, and then from there on, there's a lot of ways you can spin it.
Yep. All right, let's start with number 1. Who is the number 1 prospect in the Midwest for you?
I've got from the number 1 seed, Jarace Walker, who is a physical talent. He's strong. He's powerfully built. He's shot better than I anticipated when I scouted him coming into the year. He's also done something that I appreciated, is buying into a very good team as a freshman and played his role. So I think there's more potential than he's demonstrated on the basketball court in game. I think practices are really what scouts are salivating over. And I think his best skill is probably rebounding. And that's something I have said a couple times today about players. And that's something that I value, that I think is becoming undervalued. And I think his shooting and rebounding combination makes him a lottery talent.
Were you shocked about the loss to Memphis, even though they were missing Marcus Sasser? But were you shocked about that? And how did you feel about it? Not at all. What about his performance? 4 for 13, 13 points, only 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 fouls. What did you think about his performance?
I bet on Memphis today to win outright because I knew Sasser was going to be out, and I thought there's a lot of value on taking a team that had played Houston close just a week ago, where they lost on a buzzer beater, and now the best player on the other team was out. As for the Jarace Walker assessment, that's a tough matchup because the power forward on the other end is 26 years old, DeAndre Williams.
He's like older than like Devin Booker.
Yeah, and so I don't really love that matchup for an assessment, but it does give you an element for a taste for his physicality. I didn't think he was physically overwhelmed. I just thought he shot poorly, and that will happen when you take an increased role when one of your better players is out. So I don't read into that too deeply. I'd say overall I came away impressed with Jarace Walker's season entering March Madness. 11 points a game. 7 rebounds a game, and shooting 36% was the big one. It's the swinging skill for me. I still think that may be slightly higher than what I believe his actual shooting prowess to be, but I believe he's got more playmaking and more individual game than he demonstrated at Houston.
Let's go a little bit deeper into the shooting. At one point, he was at 42%, maybe about 3 weeks ago. Then it cooled off. But right now, through 32 games, he's at 34% from 3, which you'll take that. It's respectable. 60% from the foul line. Which do you think is the more accurate indicator of his shooting touch?
Slightly closer to the free throw line. I think his shot is pretty, but Houston generates a lot of space for his shots. He doesn't really take difficult ones. So I think that's a bit of a misnomer a little bit. And then free throws, I tend to buy as the higher likelihood of that being true shooting. It's always funny because I consider myself a good 3-point shooter, and my free throws, I never focused as well. So I shot an underwhelming percent. So I always make the argument for a couple players that they're a better shooter than their free throw numbers indicate. And he may be better than the 60% indicates, but I don't think he's as good as the 3-point percentage indicates, especially on catch and shoot, where he's been pretty good.
Yeah, when it was at 42%, I still wasn't sold. And I want to say when he's at 42%, he was about 68% from the foul line. Now they both have declined, significantly. The 3-point percentage is down about 8 points, and the free throw percentage is down about 8 points also. But that was only like maybe mid-January when they were at its peak. I'm not sold on the shooting. I think the free throw percentage is more so of an indicator of his actual shooting touch, but I do think that he can be a decent floor spacer in the NBA. All right, your number 2 prospect in the Midwest.
Jalen Hood-Schifino from Indiana. He's a guy who's really caught on, and a lot of draft people are very high on him. He's a guy who dominates from the mid-range. He's a plus-size point guard who I think as he goes, Indiana will go. So make of that what you will, because it's hard to rely on a freshman with a high usage rate. But he's a very, very talented scorer. He's able to score from 3 levels, really loves the mid-range. I don't know how much I buy his facilitating in the purest sense of being like a pure point guard. However, it's hard to deny the talent and the youth in which way, like he's 18 years old, come into Indiana late in this season and really taken off and elevated their prospects as a team. So I'm high on him to a degree. I think I was higher on him coming into the season than most people. I had him about where I have him currently. Then I had him drop down to like 35, and now he's back to 22 for me, which is where he is currently.
So we are extremely divided on him as far as our big boards. We agree, number 2, but answer this question for me. If Dyson Daniels went, what do you go, 8? Why is Dyson Daniels, in your opinion, I don't know where you had him, but why is Dyson Daniels someone that went in the top 10, and why shouldn't Hood-Schifino also go in the top 10? Me personally, based off of the style that I like and that I prefer, I would take Hood-Schifino over Dyson Daniels.
I wasn't overwhelmingly high on Dyson Daniels. I think I had him 15, and I think I was too low on him in retrospect. Daniels is a far better defender than Hood-Schifino in my estimations. Hood-Schifino is a far better scorer. I think Daniels' appeal was that he could be on and off ball for a team like the New Orleans in particular, where they've got a lot of ball handlers, and he can be a very good defender instantaneously. Hood-Schifino's appeal is that he can be a scorer from the point guard position that fits the modern NBA, that he can punish drop coverage. He can facilitate because he's taller in the defense and see over them. The reason I'm a little lower than some people on him is I'm skeptical about his actual ability to play point guard and make reads. I think Indiana kind of telegraphs their offense. It's if Hood-Schifino comes off of a pick, he's shooting a mid-range or he's dumping to Trace Jackson Davis. And I think maybe that's a hard evaluation because there's teams that he could play an entirely different role, and I love his facilitation. But the way they play offense, it makes me hard to buy into the way he actually creates for others.
See, I feel like with Dyson Daniels, I thought that he was a good defender. I wasn't high on him at all. I remember watching some games earlier in the season, and he kind of struggled bringing the ball up the court. He had to bring the ball up with his back turn, like Magic Johnson in 1983. But I didn't think that he would be effective off the ball. And looking at the stats right now, he's shooting 31% from 3. He's only shooting 60% from the foul line. So I think he is best with the ball in his hand. And that's why I wasn't as high on him. But I feel like if he went 8, then I can make a case and say Hood-Schifino should go in the lottery, which is where I have him at. So I'm high on him. I think that he is obviously like a better scorer than Dyson Daniels. I like the size. The passing is good. I mean, I've seen him make some skip passes and some cross court passes, some reads. Um, I think that he is someone that could definitely. I mean, he's already rising. He's already rising for sure. But I think he can take another leap in rising once the season is over in the off-season workouts, once teams get to see his size up close, and then if he's knocking down open shots in the workout. So we agree there. We have him at number 2. All right, who is number 3? I'm sure we'll probably agree with this here also.
I've got Chris Murray of Iowa, twin brother
Yep.
of Keegan Murray. Plays similarly. There's nuances that are different. He'll knock down threes in the NBA. He'll be able to defend. He's not going to overwhelm you athletically, but he's not incompetent in that regard either. He's a solid rebounder, solid defender, good team player, doesn't force it too much, and has a nice lefty stroke. So that's the synopsis of him. He doesn't wow me as a prospect. I think him and Jalen Wilson in very different ways I regard in a similar place in my draft board. He's at 24 right now, and Wilson's at 24 and Murray's at 25. And so I think both those guys can be impactful if they find the right homes in the NBA, and I think they're the best players on their college teams, and so it'll actually help them because they'll have a more refined role rather than carrying the burden they do in college.
All right, we'll dig a little deeper on Chris Murray when we come back. I want to ask you about his NBA role and where do you think he would be a good fit. But let's talk about Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. So you're probably wondering, how does it work? All you do is pick 2 to 6 players, and if they would go score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you first the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you may watch: NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, WNBA, European basketball, cricket, golf. I mean, the list goes on, and the entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy, safe, and fast withdrawals. And it is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. If you are a first-time user, you can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit 50, Prize Picks will give you 50. So do not forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, second segment. So far, me and Leif are 100% together with Jarace Walker, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and Chris Murray as our top 3 prospects in the Midwest. Now, with Chris Murray, first of all, did Keegan Murray wow you last year?
I think I was lower than most on him, but I still had him in the top 10 safely.
I don't think anybody's lower than our guy, Sam Ferris. Sam didn't even have him as a top 10 player after Summer League. So Sam thought he would really struggle, but he didn't change, didn't fold, still stood by it. I had him going where he went. I may have taken Jaden Ivey ahead of him long term, but I thought that their fit, I didn't think Ivey would have been the best fit, and I thought Murray would have made the most sense in Sacramento. But Chris Murray, do you think there is that big of a difference? I know you said there's some different nuances here other than them being left-handed, but do you think there's that big of a difference? And if there is, why is it based off of your big board a 20-spot difference? I guess that's the same. I've asked you that question twice so far based off of 2022 and 23 drafts.
I think there's more depth to this draft. It would be the reason for the numerical difference there. I had Keegan Murray number 8. I've got Chris 25. So, 17 spots right there. The difference to me is I think Keegan used his athleticism more advantageously in college. I think he was able to get to the rim more effectively and more frequently. I think that Chris's team has guys that are more capable individually. I think Tony Perkins took a big leap, whereas Keegan's team was very, very, very reliant on him. And so I think the burden that Keegan took on, I also thought he was a slightly better defender, even though they're very similar athletes, obviously, as twins. I thought Keegan was a bit more instinctual. And so I bought him a little more defensively, but it's relative. I think a lot of it just has to do with the hunch that I had that Keegan would be a better shooter in the NBA than he was in college, even because and I was relatively low on Keegan. And the reason I say this is because I think he'd get more open shots compared to what he did at Iowa as the targeted man. Whereas I think Chris is going to shoot fine in the NBA, but he's also getting better looks than Keegan did at Iowa.
Okay. All right, number 4. And I'm going to assume we're probably
I'm going with Marcus. Yeah, I'm going with Marcus Sasser.
Yep, same here. That was a nasty fall he had.
Yeah, that didn't look pretty. I hope he's all right because that's a team that has national title aspirations. Marcus Sasser, I have questions about his NBA role. I have questions. Does he play the point guard well enough? Because on his own team, he plays the 2 guard. But that said, his talent's there. He plays very hard on both ends of the ball. He can really, really shoot the ball. And you saw that at the combine last year when he tested waters. I think he's not put forth like an amazing season, but he's been productive on what's probably been the most consistent team in basketball this year. And that means something to me. I think 6'2", 190 is about what his measurements are going to come out to be, shooting 83% from the line and 38 from the 3. I think you got to buy the numbers and productivity and the track record over the years to a certain degree. So he's the number 4, but I also just don't think this is a particularly talent-laden region. NBA draft talent-laden region, I should say.
I think Marcus Sasser is a guy that would be perfect playing next to LeBron. Like
I agree with that.
Yeah, he needs to play with this jumbo ball handler, maybe even a Luka Doncic, maybe a James Harden, but he'd complement those guys where he doesn't have to be the primary ball handler. He can be secondary. He can play off the ball. He can knock down open shots, which is something that he can really do, is to shoot the ball. Got off to a really slow start. I want to say in late December, he was still around 29, 30, 31%. And then he got hot as the season went on. Still didn't put up the same numbers as he did in a shortened season last year where he shot like 43%, but I think he only played like 12 games. But I like him. On my my updated mock that I haven't really completed yet, it'll be interesting where I end up placing him because I kept putting him late first round until finally I just had to move him down because in my opinion, he wasn't doing the thing that he is going to have to do in the NBA, which is shoot. And as the season has went on, like I said, he's become a much better shooter. So I have him at number 4 also. All right, number 5. This is where we probably get a little bit divided here. I have Trayce Jackson-Davis at number 5. Who's your number 5?
I've got Colby Jones from Xavier.
That makes sense. And you know what? It's one of those things where I wrote it down. I went with my gut. But if I sat and thought about it a little bit more, I may flip-flop those two. But tell me a little bit more about Colby Jones, other than he does a little bit of everything. Do you got something new to add?
Well, he definitely does that. I think I buy his athleticism more than I did entering the season, and that swayed me to become higher on him. I've got a little bit of concern about his shooting 68 from the free throw line, but he's demonstrated really good touch around the rim. He's got a nice float game. He can back you down. He can hit open threes, shooting 39% from 3. Colby Jones is a guy that I think is a very good utility player. Like if he were playing baseball, he'd be your utility infielder. Like that could also give you a nice spot left field. Mm-hmm. And he can play third and second. And he'll give you left field occasionally. He's a guy that I think is like an 8th man in the NBA that if you put him on a team, like a culture team almost, like, the Heat, the Spurs, he fits in because he knows how to pass, he knows how to shoot, he knows how to rebound, but he's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And so that puts a cap on his ceiling, but I think his floor is pretty high. And I've been more impressed recently with his athleticism and defensive chops than I was entering the season, where those were the 2 areas where I was a little bit pessimistic, and I don't mean to say he's an amazing defender or an amazing athlete, but I think he's got a little more spring in his step than I anticipated coming into the season.
He's another player that the shooting concerns me. He's up to about 38% this year, but it's on a low volume of attempts, considering he is somewhat of a scorer. 3 attempts per game, not bad, not great. His first year, 33% from 3. Second year, 29% from 3. But he's shooting below 70% from the foul line. He's at 68%. His freshman year, he shot, like I said, 33% from 3, but he shot 75% from the foul line, only on 37 attempts per game. But he's another one of these guys that the three-point percentage looks good, but then the free throw percentage is kind of alarming. I mean, he's at 68% for his career. And for me, my, I guess, bottom, like 75%, right? If you're below 75% as a free throw shooter, and I think one of your strengths is supposed to be your shooting, then I'm a little bit concerned. And I don't know if I asked you last time, but what is the minimum free throw percentage number for you before you start thinking like, okay, I'm a little concerned here.
Is this for guards specifically?
I mean, however you break it down. For me, it's just 75%. Period. If you are supposed to be a shooter, like if you're a stretch 4, wing, guard, whatever. So 75 is my minimum.
Yeah, I'm about the same. I think I'm a little more lenient if you've got some a trait like you get to the rim a lot, you shoot a lot of free throws, and so maybe you're fatigued. Mm-hmm. But I'd say 73%, not much different than you. I think for bigs it becomes a little different threshold, like a true big, but there aren't too many of those anymore. There's a guy like Noah Clowney, who's a guy I'm kind of in between on, because I think if he can shoot, people will really love him. But I think he's playing a very modern style of basketball, and it makes me a little more lenient on his three-point shooting because he's shooting a ton of them at a young age.
Yep. All right. Number 6. Actually, you know what? We'll get to number 6. We'll save that for the last segment. And in the last segment, we will finish off our last, 5 guys after 4 episodes. We are almost done. All right, before we get into the last segment, if you want to eat healthy, then I have a treat for you. If you're looking to eat healthy, but you don't want to compromise the taste, then you have to try a Built Bar, because with Built Bars, healthy is actually tasty. And if you're wondering what makes them so good, it's that they are covered with 100% chocolate. Yes, that is right. They're healthy and covered with 100% real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. Not sure how they do it, but they found out a way to make it tasty and healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. What makes it great now is that you don't have to just go to built.com to get a box. You can go to Walmart. If you go to Walmart, they're in the pharmacy section. You can grab a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or if you want more, there's a 13-bar box at Sam's Club. Brownie batter churro, you can thank me later. But if you still want to just order them, go to built.com. All right, last segment. And this has been, how many segments have we done? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. This is the 11th segment. We are going on
12, I think.
12. Yeah, starting 12. We are going on, almost 3 hours of total of recording. All right, final stretch. All right, who is the number 6 or the 6th best prospect, or whoever you have ranked the number 6 in the Midwest?
I'm going with Trayce Jackson-Davis.
Okay, so we just flip-flopped.
Yeah, I'm not overly high on him as an NBA prospect. I think he's had a tremendous college basketball year. He's very deserving of being a first-team All-American. He's impressed me athletically. He's impressed me with his intangibles and leadership of a team that has kind of transitioned from being a team that I would have expected to be a 7-8 seed at the beginning of the year, the way they played, to a 4 seed as they're ranked now in the tournament. That said, about Trayce Jackson-Davis, he has never developed an ability to shoot, and he's not particularly big. He is a good leaper. He's got good hands, and he's a good passer. But he's only 6'8.5", maybe 6'9". He's 23 years old, and he's shooting 69% from the free throw line, which is better than I anticipated he would this year, but it's been steady. Defensively, he blocks a few shots, but I think that's a bit of a fluke because the Big Ten is the least athletic conference, and I think against NBA athletes, maybe if he played in the SEC, which is the most athletic conference in my opinion, I think he wouldn't stand out as much as he does defensively in the Big Ten. So he's a guy I've got tempered expectations for, but I think he's draftable in the second round, and I just don't know what role he plays in the NBA. So he's number 6 in this region, but like I said, I think there's only 5 guys I'm confident in, and I think he will be drafted. So he's the 6th, but I'm not as confident in him having a role that I can see being clearly defined based on the ebbs and flows of NBA basketball right now, transitioning to more of a modern bigs. I think he's another guy that is a little past the flow of basketball right now.
I see him as just the undersized 5. That's the role I see him. Undersized 5. The numbers are incredible. You rounded up 21 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks per game, 57% from the floor. The numbers are really good. I mean, you can't. I'm not a per 36 guy. Even if you round him up to per 36, they're about the same because he's playing 34 minutes per game. I have him as a second round pick. I think that, I mean, you can say this for anybody. You put him in the right fit, I think he can be productive. I wonder how tall he's going to end up measuring at the combine. But either way, I just think he's a guy that is going to be a backup 5 in the NBA. But maybe a good playmaker. He could be your pick and roll, a pick and roll finisher. I like the passing. I mean, I look at a team like Dallas. He
can only finish left-handed, though.
Yeah. There's some guys that, like, I'm lefty, right? And I feel like when you're left-handed, and if you only finish left, it stands out more than if you're right-handed and you only finish right.
That's fine, but for bigs, I'd like a guy with a little more dexterity when his main attribute is finishing at the rim.
Yep, definitely. I definitely agree with that. But I look at a team like Dallas right now. Dallas can't grab rebounds. They struggle on the boards. And maybe he could come in and provide some depth. I mean, Dallas is starting Dwight Powell at the 5. I mean, depending on who you ask, some people think that Christian Wood should play a lot more. Then you have JaVale McGee, but they struggle getting rebounds. And so if he's a person that come in and play some backup minutes for the Mavs, I think he could possibly help there. All right, number 6. Or are we on number 7?
7, I think. This is where it gets really interesting, and I don't think these guys are super draftable. I'll go with DeVry of Drake. He's a true shooter, and I'll be entirely candid. I've watched Drake twice this year, so that's fewer than just about any other college team that has a draftable player. But he's a good shooter, and he's on a team that's very veteran, yet he's the player of the year in his conference. And so I think there's a trust and knowing how to play for him. Athletically, he's got size, but I don't know if he uses it well against superb athletes, which they've faced very few of. And they also have defensive kind of guys with defensive chops in their lineup. So I don't think he takes on the best offensive player on the other team very often. So I am a little bit concerned about him, but I think shooting is the key that separates him from a lot of these other players that I considered for this spot.
If I'm not mistaken, and this is something that my brother told me, I haven't confirmed it, but he said Drake is older than the Houston Rockets.
That is true. Their starters are 24, 24, 23, 25, and 20. He's 20, and he was the player of the year. But their team is old.
And that's I don't know if issue is the correct word I want to use, but that is something to be concerned about with college basketball, the transfer portal. I've mentioned before, I have a friend who has a son that's 18 years old, and he's like, my son is playing behind a 23-year-old grad transfer. And teams or coaches are looking for older players. And, I had a former player tell me that if you really think about it, there's really no use for freshmen in college basketball right now, unless it is someone that is going to come in and really, really contribute. Other than that, you can just go get you a grad transfer, somebody that's 22 or 23 years old. But We agree as far as Tucker. I have him number 7 on my list. All right, number 8. Who's your number 8 guy? I think so far we are only ones we've had flip flop is Kobe Jones and Trace Jackson Davis. Other than that, we're pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, I think we probably will be here, but I don't know for sure. Another guy I'm not overly high on, but he is a tremendous athlete, and that's going to be Dillon Mitchell of Texas. I don't love his offensive game, and that's saying it politely. I don't think he has much of an offensive game. However, defensively, there's a hope that he can guard multiple positions, be a rim protector as a secondary guy who is probably a power forward. But right now, he's basically playing the 5 in a small forward's body. He's a tremendous run and jump athlete. He's raw as can be. Jump shot is not pretty whatsoever, but he is going to measure in at 6'9" with a 46-inch vertical, something very close to that. He plays with energy, and he's bought into a culture where coming in as a heralded recruit, he's not playing a ton, and he's willing to accept his role, but he's shooting 43% from the free throw line, and he's only scoring 5 points a game. I hope he does not declare for the draft, and he develops the skills in preparation for maybe the next year. But it's hard to argue with athleticism and what the NBA is prioritizing.
He is not in my top 10. I want to know how tall he is. I've seen 6'7", I've seen 6'8", I've seen 6'9". Either way, he is a 200-pound 5 that doesn't have much offensive skill. Is he even more skilled than Greg Brown, who's without a team right now? I think Greg
Brown had more skill, but he was also on a team that was younger, so they let him have the ball more, and he came in with like, I'm from Austin, this is my team mentality. I think to credit Mitchell, the fact that he's bought in and said I'll be a defense first player, I appreciate. But this is mostly because I don't love this region for NBA draft evaluation.
And see, I don't even know and it's not a knock on him, but like, how could he not buy in? What was he gonna do? Demand more shots? You know what I mean? Like, what was he gonna do?
I come in with a pessimistic approach. When I see freshmen at 5 stars, I'm impressed when they buy in because I've seen too many times people don't.
And for him, I don't understand how he wouldn't. Like, I mean, I can't see him saying I want post touches. No, I want the ball in the mid post. No, I want ISO touches. No, I want open shots. No, I never saw like the one skill set that he had other than being athletic and having a decent motor. And I'm just not as high on him. It's not like he's 18. He's 19 now. He'll turn what, 20 this year? So he's not incredibly young either. It's so long term, yeah, but I'm not high on him. And I think the shooting has a long way to go. He's at 43% from the foul line. So how long is it going to take to get him to become a decent shooter? I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to take a whole lot of development.
Maybe he'll be drafted like Josh Minot was, someone who is a tremendous open court athlete. You say, you know what, we're going to use the best of your strengths and hope we can develop your weaknesses. That's why I have him here, because if he declares, I'd be very shocked if he falls past like 45, because some team's going to say our development staff can make him a stud, and I don't know if I buy it, but that's just the way the NBA prioritizes that length and athleticism right now.
I get it, and I feel like Minot was even more productive. I mean, the teams are totally different, but
yeah, he was on a worse team, but I get your point.
Yeah. All right. Number 8 for me was Booty Ball. Did you see that interview?
I haven't actually.
So, Jalen Pickett.
Oh wait, yeah. I saw the Twitter headline, but I never saw the interview.
Yeah, Brad Underwood was saying he just plays booty ball. I thought that was one of the funniest things that I've ever heard. I like Jalen Pickett. I don't know if he gets drafted. I think he's a very unique player. I think that he'll actually do well in Summer League. It's just kind of finding the right fit for him. But I have him as my number 8 prospect in this region. What are your thoughts on Jalen Pickett?
I like the way he plays. For those of you who don't know, he kind of plays a little bit of bully ball, backs down smaller guards, passes out of the post, gets
Booty
his
ball,
buckets.
according to Brad Underwood.
Indeed, he uses the caboose to carve out space. But he's got good touch. He's got good feel for the game. I saw Twitter talking about how he's kind of like Jalen Brunson. I do not think that's necessarily true. The only similarity is they can post up and they're both guards. But I think
not
more
as crafty.
people, yeah, and he's bigger too, but not necessarily in a conducive way for the NBA. He's my number 9, so we're not too far off on that one. He's a guy that I think, like you said, won't get drafted because he's older, but I could see him impressing in summer league.
Yep. Who's your number 8?
8 for me was Dylan Mitchell, 9 Pickett, and then I'll go for 10. I think I'm going with Jordan Miller. Miami, his teammate won ACC Player of the Year, but I think Jordan Miller is the better long-term prospect.
Okay. At number 9, I had Richard Stayman's favorite player, Isaiah Wong. Like, what is it about Wong that we're not just sold on? Like, what is it that makes him not a top 60 player, in your opinion?
I think what Richard loves is his separation ability. He creates a lot of space, gets shots. I don't like the shots he takes, personally. Like, he shoots bad shots, and he's on a team that really plays to his strengths, playing quickly, gets downhill, takes step-back jumpers. I don't know if he's as good an athlete in an NBA setting as he appears to be in a run-and-gun offense where he can go downhill and jump. And defensively, I don't think he's very strong. He's kind of lanky. He's like a slender jumper rather than like a built, powerful player. But the reason I like Jordan Miller more is I just think his game translates better. He's a fine shooter. He's not spectacular. He's got a lot of craftiness. He plays from the post, similar to Pickett at times. He's a good rebounder, and I think he's the best defender on that Miami team that plays big minutes. And I also think that he's got an underrated just knowledge and feel for the game. I thought he was robbed of being a first-team All-ACC player, personally.
Who would you have replaced him with?
I think he's better than Jamarius Burton, who was first team for Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Maybe Hunter Tyson, too, for Clemson.
Okay. All right. My last was Marcus Carr or Jabari Rice. I mean, I just put them in the same bracket. Which one do you like better, Carr or Rice?
Jeez.
It's crazy, right?
Carr.
Because Texas, they won the Big 12. And we had to go all the way down to number 8 on your list to find the best prospect. And he is probably like their 8th or 9th leading scorer.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, that's college basketball for you. They're led by a 6th year in Marcus Carr. I believe Serge Jabari Rice is a 5th year, and he's transferred once or twice. They've got Christian Bishop, a transfer from Creighton, who's old. Timmy Allen, transfer from Utah. And Brock Cunningham is their ultimate glue guy, who's been there through all these talented waves of players, and yet somehow he finds a way to be on the court more than most of them. So
was he there with Greg Brown and Kai Jones and those guys?
Yeah, and he was probably better than those guys for the team they had at the moment. He was more conducive to what they wanted to do.
Man, it seems like he's been there since TJ Ford and Luke Axtell and those guys. That may have been a little bit before your
DJ
time.
Augustine and Durant a couple years after that. I'm a historian of the game.
EJ Tucker. So LaMarcus Aldridge, we can go on. But yeah, I mean, this region, I would say it was, if I had to rank them, it would be number 4 as far as NBA prospects. But overall, man, this has been fun. 4 episodes. It has been, just say that we are in very good podcasting shape. Thank you, the listener, for listening to all the episodes. If this is the first one that you listen to, there's 3 more where we broke down the top prospects from the 4 regions. So again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Thank you for making your second listen the Locked On Game to Game. I'm tired. I'm struggling for words. But Locked On Game to Game, follow it every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. So follow Game to Game on the Locked On NBA channel. It is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Leif, we are done. 4 episodes, one night. Big shout out to you for spending your Sunday night recording these episodes. So thank you. And then we will definitely be back on another time this week. And maybe like right after the first few games this weekend. So big thank you to you. Thank you again, the listener. And we are out.